I'm sure you have got the hang of it. The hang of it on how to do an essay. Therefore, the challenging part becomes how much do you understand the story in question? Yesterday, I had left behind some 2 essays that you're supposed to tackle, and most of you were picking them out. Some of you were picking them out that Checkmate as well as A Silent Song, they might be a challenge to some of you. And because you're here to make our understanding of literature better, I hope that I'll be able to make it more understandable by the end of my discussion. I wish to start them off in the order that I have discussed them. Our next essay should be coming from Checkmate. And looking at the question, you're saying, pride comes before a fall. Pride comes before a fall. Before I could share my screen, maybe through the chat section, could I hear from some of you, if that question were to come in an exam, what angle would you have taken in answering that particular question? Let me hear from like some 2 people, and then I can explain it better. What angle would you take when you are being asked from Checkmate that pride comes before a fall? Internalize it, pride, a fall. In fact, it is a proverb. It is a proverb. Meanwhile, let me be giving the outer meaning. The outer meaning would center on someone acting with arrogance until a day that they are humbled. Someone acting with a lot of arrogance, with a lot of pride, feeling untouchable, until that day they are humbled. Up to this point, from Checkmate, do any characters come to mind? Do any characters come to mind? If not, then I wish to go ahead and decipher the question at hand. About the question, we are talking about Randall and Sukia, the main characters, the ones who have been prevalently mentioned when it comes to Checkmate. Randall is the boss, and then Sukia works under Randall in a certain capacity. She is a lawyer, a corporate lawyer, and also his personal accountant. I don't know whether you had got the hang of it. Someone says Randall and Sukia. You're actually very correct when you're able to identify the 2 characters as the ones that will be helping us to come up with flesh towards writing out an essay centering on Checkmate. So I was trying to give the background about these people. And also, there are some angles I take when a story seems to be complex to my learners. Complex to my learners to mean whenever they see okay, thank you for putting off the microphone. Thanks. And now continue. Whenever my students or the students in Kenya, they see that a story has spread over a number of pages, they already get the fear it must be hard. But then maybe to give you credit on the same, this story, we need some kind of concentration. We need to understand the basics of it before we can answer any question. And once you understand the basics of it, you'll find that it is a simple story centering around corruption. Now that is the first angle I was taking. And then from the angle I'm taking, just like yesterday, what we did with the other long story. Once you get the hang of the story, you'll be able to place the correct illustrations to the right point. So number 1, I started by saying there's someone by the name of Randall. Randall is a very rich person. He is well versed. He is very familiar with politicians. He has shares in major stations that are dealing with journalism. And it has put him to a position where he feels untouchable. Therefore, what does he do? This guy engages in corruption. Majorly, the story is centered on corruption. And about his corruption, we shall say he is being aided by his lawyer, who also serves as his personal accountant. And if there's any confusion in the details that you have read in the book, someone might be wondering, when I look at Sukia, there are some pages that are calling her a corporate lawyer. She is in charge of drafting contracts. At the same time, she is his personal accountant. If you're reading the same book that I'm reading, there's a time, in fact, Sukia started off as an accountant. Later on, she felt lawyers earn more money. Therefore, she has the qualifications to serve as both. And then later on, she gets to meet with Randall and they're engaging in corruption. In what way are they engaging in corruption? If I could ask that question, in what way are they engaging in corruption? The story clearly says when Randall had hired her, she thought it was for the purpose of covering loopholes. And I'm pausing at that word for a while. She had thought that she had been hired over there to do what? To cover loopholes. In other words, when you're drafting a contract, how might it affect my client? That's what she understood in her naivety, the earlier years, that she had been taken over there to cover any loopholes. That when you're signing a contract, let me read through it very carefully so that my boss will not be on the disadvantaged side. And I hope I'm really centering on very simple English. Later on, she realizes she had been hired over there, in fact, to create the loopholes. What am I trying to say? Sukia is helping Randall in his corrupt dealings, helping him to enhance the corruption. They are creating loopholes in this way. What can you create in the contract so that you can earn more money? And also, because she's a lawyer, she needs to be aware we need to do it this way and not that other way, so that when you're taken to court, my boss is safe. I hope up to that point, my learners have been able to understand looking for loopholes and creating the same loopholes. Then still on corruption, because also I'll need to decipher the meaning behind the title. But before I go to that, let me take it systematically. We are still on corruption. So basically, what is happening in this story? In this story, Randall, one of the things that is about to bring him down, Randall had undervalued a company. I don't want to get so deep into it, but then the bit of it without confusing my learners, I'll try and explain. Undervaluing a company means if someone wants my company today, on this date of April, it is worth 10 million. Let's work with very simple math. The company is worth 10 million. But someone else tells you, could you just make it 5 million? And then from the 5 million, you sell it to me for 5 million, and then I'll end up giving you maybe even the 4 million. That is what Randall has done. He has undervalued the company in the methanol deal. There's a methanol deal. He has undervalued the company by 50%. Simple math. If it was worth 50 million, he says it is worth 25. That is an act of fraud, an act of corruption that might bring him to his knees. I'm giving all these details because at the end, they will feature. And at the end, you'll also understand how is it checkmate. Take it slowly. Let's continue understanding. Another thing that Randall has done, he has been lining the pockets of politicians. He's not eating the money alone, he is eating with politicians. Therefore, at some point, he feels untouchable. That aspect that I'm giving will, at a certain point, touch on my question, the pride. You know who I am? I'm Randall. I have the blessings of a lot of politicians. I'm even giving them money to fund their campaigns. That one is still corruption. That is a form of bribery. Still on Randall, He's a master at undervaluing a company and then being given financial kickbacks that could be translated to fraud. Still on Randall, this guy has been forging his own signature. Forging his own signature in what way? The guy can sign his own signature very well, but he knows when they'll be investigated for corruption, he'll have to answer to charges. How does he keep himself safe? Even when he's informing Sukiya, I was protecting myself. How is he protecting himself? He decides, my own signature when I'm signing, I will make it look not so much like my own, so that I can go ahead and accuse another person. I'm not the one who signed this. You're the one who signed it because my letter P, my letter R in Randall does not look like the R that you're seeing over here. So he'll be able to defend himself that he's not the one who has signed the check. In other words, what is he doing? He's corrupt. He is framing Sukiya. At the end of it, Sukiya goes ahead and asks him, why are you forging your own check? The guy says, where is the evidence I'm the one who is forging my own check? This one cannot simply be interpreted to mean someone who has equal access to the checkbook is the one who has signed over this. Because look at my handwriting, the R is not mine. As you continue, I hope you have been able to understand the side of corruption that touches on Randall. Moving on, let's look at Sukiya. She is equally corrupt. Maybe some of us have been seeing Sukiya as a victim, but she is equally corrupt. She had been advised by Randall. They keep helping companies and they're given kickbacks. They help a company to maybe do something illegal, they're given some money and they share that money. From the understanding of this book is coming from Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is a country in the Caribbean. In this country, they're also using dollars, but not the US dollars. Let's understand that. The country is also using dollars, but not US dollars. In other words, the Trinidadian dollar, if it is the US dollar, if it is converted to Trinidadian dollars, the money becomes even more. Having said that, now we want to understand, how is Sukiya involved in all this? Sukiya, thanks to Randall and the way she has been drafting up his corrupt contracts, she is also gaining financially to the extent that she is living a life of excess. Sukiya has a lot of money. And because of this money, okay, could you first of all give examples of the way Sukiya is living a life of a lot of money? She has a lot of money. For example, look at the kind of car she is driving. An Audi Q7. An Audi Q7, she even notes, it is not your regular car. Very few people had that kind of a car. We are looking at Sukiya. She is wealthy. She's extravagant. She's living extravagantly. The car. And even the car, there's a way she's still breaking the law. It is a story about corruption. As she is breaking the law, we are seeing Sukiya has tinted her windows beyond the legal limit. What does it mean? You have broken the law. If it is beyond the legal limit, you have already broken the law. But then she feels, which policeman will be going after me? After all, this car of mine can buy them houses. Just my car can buy for 7 different policemen houses. That one is also an element of pride. Sukiya is proud. She is being carried by the wave of, I have a lot of money. I am untouchable. Still on Sukiya. There's the element of Trinidadian dollars as well as the element of US dollars. So now let the story unfold. At the beginning of the story, what is happening? This lady has gone to deposit a check. And even as she is about to deposit the check, She looks at the teller with a lot of contempt. Looking at the teller, she sees the teller as a simple person and all that. She's already judging the teller from the outlook. She has decided to look down upon the teller. Another thing you're being told about Sukia, in her earning bracket, the kind of salary she has right now, people at that level have become so proud that they are no longer dealing with tellers. They deal with your boss. Who's the boss? The bank manager. Sukia, in her mind, she doesn't need to deal with the tellers, but the bosses, people, most people at her level. But then she thinks she is cleverer. She's a bit sly. With the manager, he might be able to spot her schemes. How can someone earning 50,000, how can the person have accumulated 7 million, and it is not Trinidadian dollars, 7 million US dollars, and you can imagine like 5 million US dollars equals 30 Trinidadian dollars. Let me repeat, 5 US equals 30 Trinidadian, and you're talking about million. So that tells you the value of the US dollar is way beyond the Trinidadian dollar. And this woman, thinking she's very clever, she does not want to deal with the manager. In her belief, the manager is clever enough to see that someone earning this amount of money cannot have acquired this amount in savings. Therefore, she just always goes to deposit at the tellers, and because she has looked down upon the teller, her idea is that the teller, what can she know? What can she know about what is happening? But she is in for some shock. She has become careless. Someone has a lot of money, a lot of checks in her desk, to the extent that she is reluctant to go and deposit. And you can only get money after you have deposited the check and it is converted to cash money. Now, one day, the lady is waiting in one among the queues. There's a queue for the ordinary people, there's the queue for a certain special type of people. When she's over there conversing with the teller asks her, for this amount of money, would you like to open a US dollar account? At that point is where Sukia realizes, what do you mean? She has that accent that is not really proper English. And whenever she is under tension, she tends to revert back to her original way of speaking. Now, if I could, at a certain point, when I'll be going back to sharing my points, at a certain point, that will make up for one of the points on pride comes before a fall. Sukia has looked at this teller. How much can this woman know? She cannot understand the ways of the rich people, how the rich people handle their money. That was pride. That was already Sukia looking down on this bank teller. Now the fall comes in this way. Isn't it the same teller who has made her to be that nervous? The pride, the fall. When this woman calls to her attention, this is a US dollar check. In fact, at first she refers to it in terms of 30 million. Sukia wonders, I've given you 5 million. Why are you talking about 30 million? Little did Sukia know, unwittingly, she had given a check that was in US dollars, meaning upon conversion, it will even be more money, which is 30 million in Trinidadian money. Later on, the same lady she had underrated is asking her, what do we do about this? Could I call the treasury and all that? And Sukia is even getting nervous. At a certain point, she goes to her accent and then she pulls herself back in good time. You speak, be out of nervousness, the original way you'd have spoken. And then you call yourself back to attention and you now try to correct something because Sukia, she has a countryside accent. This one is not Kenya, but we know what I'm talking about when we talk about your countryside accent. All of us, whenever we are speaking, probably from the pronunciation of words, you can always tell from which part of Kenya does the person come from. But this person does not want to be reminded of her countryside origins. Because of that, the person always tries to suppress the accent. But no, that is a fall. This woman that you have looked down upon, is it the same woman that when she is now calling your mistake to account, you're even becoming nervous? And at a certain point, the same lady is making you to develop this kind of nervousness. That was a fall on Sukia's part. Let's move on to another. Maybe the discussion continues. We also see the aspect of corruption of Sukia in that after realizing this is a lot of money, she is still contemplating on whether to go and face Randall, asking for an explanation, or simply disappear with this money. This is a lot of money. I can simply disappear with it. That is what she is also contemplating on. And then, if I could give relevance to the title, look at the spelling of the word check. The spelling of the word check has come in form of the paper that you can use to claim money. That becomes a check. But in grammar, when someone is talking about a position, you have been put at a position whereby the other person has won over you. The check is spelled as, if you could just listen, Check. Check. In a game of, sorry? Is that a problem? One minute, please. 1 minute, please. I can hear some. A minute, please. I can hear some murmurings that are becoming a disruption. Anyway, to continue. I've even lost my line of thought, but let's go back to
Madam
it was about the title. Yes.
I think I will not allow people not to stay with their muted phones. If somebody unmutes again and you're not responding to the teacher in class, I will remove you. Because tell me why everybody else has their mics off. Wewe yako ndio umeachilia tu ikae tu hivyo ikitusumbua. So if I mute you again, I will remove you from class. That's not a threat, it's a promise. Because hawezi shinda ukitusumbua hapa. Make your mics off, please. It is very distracting. You are thinking, you are talking, and then you lose it completely. Na kumbe mwenye anaongea vitu zake na huko. Let's keep our mics off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I had also observed the same. Please let's concentrate. And when you're speaking, as I'm speaking, you're also making me to lose my line of thought. Anyway, back to what I was saying, let's understand the relevance of the title. In a game of chess, there's that position we call a checkmate. A checkmate is whereby I don't play chess, but it is a position whereby someone has pushed you to the corner. You no longer have a comeback. You are at a disadvantaged position, and your opponent becomes the winner. That is the checkmate in terms of a game of chess. How do you spell that one in the game of chess? We talk about Check. When you checkmate someone, it means you have put them in a position that they have no comeback, therefore you become the winner. But let's look at the spelling of our checkmate in terms of our story for today. It has a QUE, and the QUE, the check with QUE, is that paper that you can take to a bank and you cash it and you are given money. So Are you telling me the author of this story did not know how to spell checkmate, the same one that you need for chess? No, pun was intended. There was a reason the person used this, giving me relevance of the title. Relevance of the title, I want to look at it from two angles. Number one, these people have been committing forgery in form of checks. Someone like Sukia has been given 5 million US dollars, and later on you're learning she had been given that money so that she can shut her mouth in terms of that Chinese dealing. But to maybe a layman, to a person who doesn't understand these things so much, the person will simply have thought this is her money for drafting the contract. You know, your lawyer, there's some money for the work they're doing for you. There'll be some money they'll be given. But then Suki is still wondering, why is this money a lot? Just for drafting the check. When she's now confronting her boss, the boss tells her, I'm giving you this money so that you can shut your mouth about the illegal dealing that I did, which was undervaluing a company. That aside. On the same, checkmate in chess is a position whereby your opponent will win over you. Let's fast forward to the ending of the story. At the ending of the story, at a certain point, we see Randall threatening Sukia. He is telling her, kneel, now come over here and kneel to your master. But then Sukia had been recording it. She turns the situation around and she also tells him to now come and kneel before the mistress. Now you're wondering who has won over this. Randall, at a certain point, he thought he had fixed Sukia. In case there was an investigation, Sukia would have taken the fall. Little did he know, Sukia had a phone, she was recording, and the phone, apart from recording, the phone could also send it to other people via email. Therefore, she too has put him in a position of checkmate. You thought you're doing it against me? I've put you in a worst decision, in a worse position. Therefore, who is the winner between the two of us? I hope I have been able to give an insight to the understanding of the story. Corruption. At the end of it, they set each other up, and most likely both of them will be facing the law. I'm now ready to share the question, and mostly it will be about, some points will be what you have already heard, but it is so good when you're able to see it in written form. Let's start with our question. I've shared the screen. Let's start with our question. Our question says, pride comes before a fall. And someone was kind enough to tell me we are speaking about Randall as well as Sukia. Prove the validity of this, basing your argument on Checkmate by Kelvin Baldeosingh. To the contextualized introduction. Contextualized, remember, we automatically get to the requirements of the question, touching on the book. So we are talking about Randall and Sukia. My introduction captures them. Both Randall and Sukia have felt safe in the power of their corruptly acquired money, until the law humbles them when they realize the seriousness of their actions as they are about to face the law. So we've captured the aspect of pride. They think they have too much money. They are so untouchable. Number two, now they have to answer charges, therefore it becomes the fall. Let's look at a paraphrased one. From the word pride, I come up with the word proud. One is only proud until life humbles them. Even if I could have ended it at that point, it is a good enough introduction that captures a paraphrased introduction. One is proud until life humbles them, when things do not happen according to their plan. Digest on that, then we can go to the general introduction. The general introduction, speaking about things that happen in our society. And then what shall we say about the things that happen in our society? That some people might express a lot of pride when they are in positions of power, believing that tables will never turn. In other words, untouchable, tables will never turn, and that their money will be enough to save them. That is still pride. Upon being faced by an undesirable event, their pride quickly melts into humility. Someone very proud. And then later on, we see the person has been humbled, they resort to humility. That was it about the introduction. Let's do it the way we always do. Let's pick a point we understand.
Madam Rispa? Madam? I think she must have had an issue with her whatever. It's okay. Let's give her a minute. When she comes back, she'll take it up from where she stopped. I think she's been thrown out. Maybe it's internet or something. Let's give her a minute.
Okay, for a moment there, I thought I had lost connection. I'm back.
It's
We're
okay.
talking
Let me make
about...
your call
Okay.
so that you're able to see. So you can go back a bit. I'm not sure at what point you got lost, but you can go back a bit, just kidogo.
Oh, I had lost connection with you people. I'm sorry.
Yes, you
So
had.
the first point, I'm about to share it on screen. I'm not sure at what point I lost some of you in terms of connection. But then the first point centers around Randall being untouchable because he has godfathers in the right places. He has wormed his way into the politicians' hearts. He has wormed his way into the pockets of major media houses. Therefore, he seems untouchable. But then when he's speaking with Sukia, he is assuring her all the blame will fall on you. But despite that, don't worry, our country does not have the kind of skill to investigate such a kind of a case. But at the same time, they might be bringing in foreigners to investigate this. So his admission that they might even be bringing in forensic auditors is an inevitable, that it must happen. They might bring in American forensic auditors. That shows, as much as I felt untouchable over there. But then when this one will be touching on it will backfire on the politicians as well. If the politicians suffer, I might also lose their support. That admission itself is that Randall is accepting that he as well might fall. Let me share it in form of writing. Let me share my document so that you can read for yourself point number one. Point number one is the one I've discussed. Randall is with the politicians, the media houses. He's almost untouchable. Even he relates with the prime minister. The prime minister wants to turn the country into something that looks like Miami. In other words, develop it for purposes of tourism. Whose company has been given a contract? It is Randall's company. That is a very strong point that speaks to the fact that he is relating well with the politicians. But later on, when a scandal will unfold, the politicians will not go down with him because he will have cost them votes. And Randall admitting that there might be external investigation that might even involve America. That tells you his pride is coming to a fall. He is not beyond scrutiny. He is not beyond investigation. Point number one, look at it. What he has done might cause an economic crisis. And because of that, it will cost the politicians in terms of votes. He accepts an investigation that would even involve American auditors must happen. It is inevitable. Earlier on, he was untouchable. He was lining the politicians' pockets with money. He was also relating with the prime minister. As I'm ending that paragraph, what am I saying? The acceptance that he might be subject to investigation due to the inevitable falling out with those in power is a sign of a fall. Many years you've been up there. Right now, you also will be investigated. Is his acceptance that his fall is about to come. I've stopped sharing the screen. Any person with a concern, I've stopped sharing my screen to welcome any person with a concern. Okay, I'm still concentrating on Randall. Let the points on Randall be running concurrently. Not concurrently, sorry. Let them be running one after the other before we can go to point number 3 and point number 4 that will center on Sukia. With my second point that is on Randall, I want us to understand the element of his contempt towards Sukia. He's so proud towards her. He looks at her like someone inferior. There's nothing much you can do to me. After all, I have put you in your place. He had just thought that if I could make her take the fall, she has no comeback. The relevance of the title, checkmate. He has almost checkmated her, and he is assured, even when they are going down, it is Sukia that will take the fall on his behalf. On his side, he's very proud. He has pocketed a lot of money, leaving the company bankrupt. But then when investigations will come up, it will be Sukia that will be fixed on angles such as she's the one who has, she'll be told she's the one who has been forging his signature. At the same time, there is a pen that Sukia uses. And Randall had thought himself very clever. It reached a scenario where he said, my pen has run out of ink. Could I borrow your pen? This one was a ploy. It was a scheme that even when he'll be crying that someone was making a forgery of my signature, he'll have the backing of, this pen is hers. This letter P does not look, this letter R does not look like mine, and such kind of a defense. Now, to that point, you're saying, Randall has a lot of pride as he speaks to Sukia. You can even remember the place that he tells her, kneel down to your master. That is someone who looks at you and he feels that you are beneath him. And he, even in a contemptuous way, he lays out his plan. Who fixes you and then goes ahead to tell you the way they fixed you properly? I was only protecting myself. Even if you're being investigated, don't worry, you can get away with it. Our country does not have all this. But later on, the fall comes in this form that Sukia came armed. She was recording using her phone. And even if Randall got angry, trying to grab the phone from her, she tells him, not only can it record, but it can also send emails. Now, come and kneel to your mistress. You see that? Someone who was very proud, speaking to you like you're inferior to them. Later on, the tables are turned, and it is now Sukia telling him, come and kneel before your mistress. Allow me to share on that point of Randall. He's proud in two ways. The first one, he said he had the backing of the right people in the right places. Number 3, we are saying his manner of speaking to Sukia was also bringing out some superiority complex, the pride. But when his fall comes, now, even Sukia is ordering him, give me back my pen. The guy looks like he's so scared, so it captures very well he's falling. Let's look at point number 3. Skip also. Now go to the paragraph that starts with thirdly. The last paragraph on the page that I'm sharing on screen. The third paragraph, or you can simply call it the last one on the page that I'm sharing on screen. Randall has a lot of pride as he cruelly informs Sukia of what he has done against her. When confronted on why he had forged his own signature as he countersigned the checks with Sukia, he replies that he was merely protecting himself. He is confident that the authorities, when they come for answers on his defrauding the company, that none of it will point at him, but blames the board, the managers, and Sukia too. When Sukia feigns helplessness, there's a point that Sukia pretends like she is helpless. She's even, the tears are welling up in her eyes. So this guy feels, aha, I'm so superior. I have put you in your place. And then when Sukia is showing that she's helpless, asking for his help, I've always been loyal. The guy tells her, you have been paid to be loyal. He treats her cruelly, asking her to kneel before him in an attempt to humiliate her. When she releases the recording, the roles are reversed as his lips thin to a vicious smile. Now, class, even this guy who was humiliating another one, telling her to kneel before him, later on, when the situation was turned around, he realizes there was a recording that was ongoing. His lips thin to a vicious smile. He makes an attempt to grab it, but upon realizing the recording has also been emailed safely, he stood still, breathing heavily. And when asked to hand back Sukia's pen, he does it obediently as if one suffering from arthritis. This was the best kind of humbling that has been brought out in the book. Kneel before me. The same guy asking the other to kneel before him, he later on just manipulated as if he is some kind of a puppet. Give me my pen. Now move over here and kneel to your mistress. This is a good point. I don't think it needs further explanation. We see his pride. He has cornered Sukia. Later on, we see Sukia turning it around, even when he's smiling viciously, in a dangerous way. It's like he wants to harm Sukia, even moving towards grabbing the pen. And then the same Sukia now is telling him, I have emailed it. Even if you grab the phone, the information has securely been captured in a server somewhere on the internet. At that point, the guy, his reaction, even the way he acts as if he is suffering from arthritis, handing back her pen, is clear evidence that the guy has been humbled. 2 points on Randall. Let's go to the points on Sukia. Sukia, her pride comes out the worst when she is dealing with the teller. And this point I have already touched on it. I said when she is dealing with the teller, she has this kind of superiority complex. Looking at this woman, she has held her hair into a bun in a simple way. She looks at the teller, even judging, if this woman is able to secure my account, her salary will not rise with a lot of money, maybe $5 per year, maybe $2 per month. That is the kind of pride Sukia displays towards the teller. Clearly, she is saying in her own thinking, I'm beyond this teller. But then have we seen the way the same teller, even without any effort, the teller is humbling Sukia. Sukia had thought the teller cannot understand anything to do with how rich people handle their affairs. And the same teller humbles Sukia, and I've said without any effort. Without any effort, meaning the teller was not out to humble Sukia. But the same teller is making Sukia so nervous that Sukia is reverting back to her countryside accent. And later on, when we'll be revising through the book, after we've discussed, I know that you usually go back and revise. There's a way she is speaking that is very particular to people who have grown up in a certain region. And that thing has always, in a way, put Sukia down. In any possible chance she gets, she wants to suppress that accent. But the same teller she was looking at like you don't know much is the same teller that is humbling her to the extent that she loses her cool and her original accent comes out. Furthermore, the teller is putting her to account. She's now the one who is schooling her, asking Sukia, with this amount of money, do you want us to open for you a US dollar account or in your savings account, to an extent that Sukia at a certain time she has to run away. And when Sukia is running away, she's telling the teller, I'll come back later. Upon which the teller tells her, when you come back, remember, you have to disclose your source of finances. Where did you get a lot of money? As follows. That money that you have, where is the source of your money? You'll have to disclose it. That is a moment of humbling. So if you could just compare the way Sukia has treated this teller, and I'm about to share the screen. The way Sukia has treated the teller, it speaks to her pride. The way the teller, without any effort, begins to school Sukia, 1. The teller, number 2, makes her very nervous that she loses her cool and reverts to an accent she has been trying to suppress. That one already speaks to the fact that pride comes before a fall. Let me share my screen. The point to do with Sukia and her contempt towards the teller. It will be captured as point number 2. Hope my screen is very visible. It will be captured as point number 2. We are looking at also Sukia. Despise the tellers, thinking of them as less clever in understanding how the rich carry out their finances. In other words, she can do it just when the teller is in the view of the teller, but then the teller will not be able to decipher. That is how low an opinion Sukia had of this teller. Then you continue. She thought of how the view of the amounts deposited in the checks would arouse their jealousy, of how she earned almost 100 times of what they do. What is that? That is pride. You look at my check and you think, I earn 100 times better than you do. We continue. She contemptuously thinks of their cheap life insurance policy. That one has been captured on page 102. As she sits in her car, she thinks of how she could have been like that teller, but she reckons that she worked hard. Imagine someone looks at you and she says, imagine I could have had a life like yours. But because I worked hard, that one speaks very clearly to her pride and her contempt towards the teller. In other words, the teller is beneath me. She cannot get to my level. Then we continue. She had worked hard and found a way to leave poverty. She feels embarrassed that the teller might catch a glimpse of her countryside accent, and she quickly averts the situation, although with regret. Her fall lies in the fact that the same teller she had underrated is able to see loopholes that her clever self. Imagine her clever self did not see that. This one is a US dollar check. The teller reminds her to be ready to disclose her source of income when she visits later to open the US dollar account. When the teller points out, what the teller points out becomes Sukia's start of her headache on the problems that might befall her. Maybe if someone could ask me, Teacher, what do you mean? What she said was the onset of her problems. Before that, it was a normal day for Sukia. She was just simply going to deposit the checks that had been lying around in her desk. But then when the teller pointed out, the same simple teller, the same teller who is lying in poverty because she's not clever enough. And now at that point, what do we see? The teller unknowingly, without any effort, is schooling Sukia. Allow me to give it a minute and then I stop sharing the screen so that I can go to my last point. 2 points were on Randall, 2 points were on Sukia. The first point on Sukia is her despising the bank teller. The same bank teller begins to school her, yet she had considered herself cleverer than that same bank teller. Let me go to my last point. My last point lies on the fact that Sukia feels she is above the law. Because of her money, this woman has felt she's above the law. What tells? Could I give evidences towards the fact that she feels she's above the law? Let's be reminded of her Audi. When she was in her Audi, we noted that her Audi had windows that were tinted beyond the legal limit. In other words, she has even broken the law. But she feels it will be very difficult for the policeman. A policeman is a representation of the law. It will be so difficult for a policeman to stop me and question me because of the kind of a car that I drive. They know it will be almost futile for them. It will be a lost battle because when the money that I have used to buy this car, it can buy for them houses, not one policeman, but several of them. Their houses, the cost of their houses equals the cost of that car. So she feels they can't stop me. I'm untouchable. They just look at my car and they back off. Now, let's relate it to this. Is it the same law she is afraid of that it might catch up with her? When now she is becoming worried about the forgery they have been, she has been made party to. She has been made party of the forgery. And now as she is now sweating, she's thinking the same law can catch up with me. And because the law can catch up with her, what does she intend to do? She intends to, one among the ideas that she has is that she can run away. What would make her run away if she's not afraid of the law? So we see at that point to bring out that Sukia is very proud. She thinks she is above the law. The same law is about to catch up with her to the extent that she is worried. She is even thinking of taking to flight. She's thinking of running away. And with that, let me share the point on the same. Let me share about her aspect of pride. And the same pride, she's now afraid that the law might catch up with her. The screen I've shared is easily seen. It is the only point on that page. Lastly, Sukia displays a lot of pride in the amounts of money she has in her name. But later on, the same money makes her to contemplate running away when she realizes she has been set up to take the fall for fraudulent acquisitions. As she drives her SUV Audi, she feels she's above the law. She enjoyed its vantage point, and despite the fact that she had tinted it beyond the legal limit, she still feels that policemen charging someone with such a car that can buy them a house would be futile. Thus, they wouldn't dare. This is someone who feels I'm above the law. They wouldn't dare. She had thought that the money such as the example of the kind of car she drives, it speaks to someone having a lot of money. Then it continues. The same law she is above of is about to become her nightmare, as it has a way to make her face charges on fraud, and she contemplates running away as she had gathered enough money and property that could have sustained her life on the run. This begs a question. Is this the same law that she was looking like she is not afraid of? What might a policeman tell me? The same kind of policeman will be sent to arrest Sukia. Therefore, it brings her pride to an end. And then before I can share my conclusion, let me just give a general view of my discussion in terms of summary of the main points. Summary of the main points, what are we looking at? We are looking at pride and we're looking at the fall. Another thing, before I can even center on that question, this one is mostly about corruption and wrongdoing. Mine, I always try to come up with a different essay from the regular ones you have seen online, because the ones online, you can always go online and find them available. So I usually try to make my essays to take a different angle, but still centering on the story. So back to the summary. Number one, we're looking at pride, we're looking at downfall. Let's start with Randall. Number one, Randall was proud because of having godfathers in the right place. But then his fall comes in the fact that he acknowledges an investigation might be conducted, and because the politicians will not go down with him, he is acknowledging the possibility of a fall. That was number one. Number two, we are also Randall speaking to Sukia in a proud manner, as if he has no regard for Sukia. The same Sukia turns the tables around, and now he goes on the receiving end. He is now the one who is almost begging for mercy. That was point number two. This one I'm just summarizing. Point number three, we look at Sukia. She seems to have a lot of contempt towards the bank teller. The bank teller doesn't have much. Tables are turned. The same bank teller now begins to school her on her mistakes, even though the bank teller is not out to do it. She does it unawares, but the same bank teller makes her nervous and sets the stage for her nightmare. It points out to the mistake that she has done. It has been pointed out through someone that she had thought to be very insignificant. Number four, Sukia looks like she does not fear the law. She believes she is above the law. The same law wants to put her in her place, and she is contemplating running away. That has made the basis for our discussion, unless someone has a different point that they can always add. Otherwise, I move on to conclude. I don't need to really explain so much about the conclusion. I can simply share my screen. It's something we have been doing over and over again. Just a reminder, always ensure that it relates to the question of the day. So at the end of it, how have I concluded my essay? I've said, individuals should lead an honest and humble life. When I say humble life, what am I trying to imply? We should not be proud. To avoid the consequences that come from when they were breaking the law. Pride makes one blind to wrongdoing. In other words, your pride will be the source of your downfall. So, as a point of advice, individuals should avoid pride and live a humble life so that they are not blind to wrongdoing, so that they'll be able to see when you are going astray. That brings an end to my discussion on our first essay. It was the essay that had a lot of explanation to do and something to note, not for you to write, something to note at the back of your mind. This is an essay. This is a story, not an essay. This is a story that if you're not careful, if you try to understand some details about how companies work deeply, you might end up losing the mark. Understand the story generally, and the questions will even be centering on the same. And with that, I think I wish you luck when you're dwelling with any other question to do with checkmate. Any question for me? Any reaction? Before I can move to a silent song. Any question, any reaction before we can move to a silent song? Otherwise, I want to say the following. The kind of exams we meet at the national level, they usually have questions that are two-sided. The questions that you're likely to meet, they have a two-sided approach to essay questions. Like this one, we are looking at pride. Could you prove pride? And then you move ahead and do what? You also prove the fall. That one was a two-sided question. Now, let me explain something else, and then I can go ahead and share my next question. The story that you were interested in being discussed, it is the one that bears the title of the anthology. Our anthology is called a silent song and other stories. And from one among the participants, one said, Mbane is a nightmare. In other words, maybe they might find a difficulty when dealing with the story, a silent song. I want to relate it with something I've just recently said. That questions are mostly two-sided. The question I had given you yesterday on the same silent song that we're about to discuss looked like one-sided. It said people with disability, they undergo a lot of problems. I don't know whether I've phrased it the right way. People who have disabilities, they undergo a lot of problems. And we are basing it on a silent song. By interpretation, I hope all of my students were able to see this story will majorly focus on our main character, Mbane. And about Mbane, have you been able to see that Mbane is the disabled character that you're speaking about in the book? Mbane is suffering from two angles. Number one, he is blind. If we are using euphemism, we say Mbane is someone who has a challenge when it comes to his sight. Another thing about Mbane, physically challenged. The euphemism I was looking for is physically challenged. Physically challenged, if I could make some people maybe understand, I don't like the kind of language, but forgive me for using it. It is just in a bid to make you understand. Someone who is crippled, someone who is lame, but those words do not carry any kind of respect in them. But let's be assured I'm speaking about a physically challenged person. He cannot walk on his legs. And because of that, Mbane is experiencing a lot of challenges. Now, this question is not even hard. This question is not hard, neither is it complex, but the real test comes in the fact that with this question, whenever you mention something about Mbane, you'll have to go back to the evidences in the book. Another problem I have with this. Such a question, it only explores the story from one angle. And the story from one angle, and also the story is short. Therefore, whatever you say, you'll always have to go back to the details in the few pages of the discussion of the story. And now allow me to share the story in form of my screen. We internalize and nothing much. In fact, I was saving it in case we had a lot of questions about the first essay, we could have tackled it. This one will not take us a lot of time. Let me share. It says in our society, the disabled undergo a lot of suffering. In our society, the disabled undergo a lot of suffering. Keywords, disabled. Another keyword is the word suffering. And because you have narrowed it down, we are simply talking about Mbane is suffering. But in what ways is Mbane suffering? If I could just maybe, even without expounding on any of the points, if I could just give the topic sentences. What are some of the parameters of suffering that you are going to attribute to Mbane? In what ways is he suffering? Number one, and then later on we shall be looking at the details. But number one, allow me to go through all the 5 points and then I go one by one to the evidences for each. Number one, Mbane suffers physical pain. Number one, it is physical pain. It makes basis for a point on its own. Number two, he lives under deplorable conditions, unfavorable conditions. I'll give the evidences. We're looking at the topic sentences. Number one, pain. Number two, His living conditions are poor. Number 3, Mbane is hopeless. Number 4, Mbane is overdependent. He has to depend on other people. He can't see. At the same time, he can't even walk. How can he even work for himself? He can't walk. Therefore, he can't work and earn a living for himself. That was number 4. Mbane is overdependent. Lastly, Mbane is lonely. Mbane is lonely. Now, for each point, we look at the flesh to develop that point. And even when I'm sharing my write-up, at the end of our lessons, because it is typed, you can always see the number of words I used. My number of words are always more than the prescribed for KCSE. KCSE, they usually tell you in about 450 words. I'm even looking at Mbane already, I have 644. If I was trying to be in line with the length of a composition, I could simply have done my expected 4 points. And another thing that makes mine to be lengthy, I've used all the types of introductions. Or even if I don't use the 3 types of introductions, I try to use more than one. But in a normal essay class, you know that you pick on one type of introduction, one type of conclusion, and the points should have been 4. So don't worry, teacher, you've given yours, and yours looks like it has 644 words. We are being asked for 450 words. No worries, no worries. Let me start by sharing my screen on the introduction, and then the points that I've just mentioned, I will expound each one on its own. Let's look at the introductions to do with Mbane. Let's look at the introductions to do with Mbane. Number 1, you're saying a paraphrased one. They're differently abled. You know, we are looking for euphemism. I was trying, I think I made an error in using the word disabled, but I wanted you to understand the question. When you're trying to say, when you tell these people they are disabled, you're telling them you cannot do anything. So we try and call them maybe the differently abled people in a community, undergo many challenges. The suffering, we simply change the wording. Suffering becomes challenges, and it will be discussed below. That was paraphrased. Number 2, we are looking at a contextualized one. As usual, contextualized, we'll go directly and decipher whom are we speaking about in our particular story. So we are saying Mbane. The disabled man we are trying to speak about in the question translates to Mbane, who is blind as well as crippled, who is blind as well as physically challenged, experiences a lot of hardships, as has been portrayed in a silent song. Both examples are good. Both examples are good. Let me stop sharing the screen so that you can also listen. In my screen, you've seen I did not have a general introduction, but I can come up with one if you could lend me your ear for a minute or two. General introduction has everything to do with our society. So I can simply talk about, in our society, the differently abled people undergo a lot in ways such as people look down upon them, and others even use them to gain financially when they station them at various places in corners of big towns so that they can beg for money. What is sad is that this money they're begging for is never goes to helping the disabled person. That was a general introduction. I hope you're able to listen to it. We're talking about the challenges, difficulties, people using them for financial gain. They station them at a corner in the big towns to beg for money. At the end of it, the money benefits the person who is controlling the physically challenged person. That is what makes up for my general introduction. I've just come up with it offhand. Let's move on to the points as I had arranged them as I had outlined them. Number one, he said he suffers from physical pain. Now, with this kind of a story that is very short, it will even be more difficult than the ones you fear, like sins of the fathers. You know, sins of the fathers provides a lot of avenue where you can change the wordings. But now when you talk about Mbane experiencing pain, and we need to illustrate what you're saying, basing it on the details of a silent song. From what the book says, and I don't know how many can remember it at the end of it, unless we want to do what? Be reading and rereading. I'm encouraging you to be reading and rereading what has been said about pain that Mbane experiences. The book says the pain was in his spine and stomach, and it was rapidly gathering violence. Illustration to speak to his pain. There was pain in his spine. People know the spine, located at the back, somewhere on our backs, and the stomach, and it was intensifying. When they say it was gathering violence, from the wordings of the writer tries to say it was in fact gradually increasing. This pain was coupled with some sharp pangs from the navel that mark somewhere on your stomach. That mark somewhere on your stomach is what you're calling the navel. And the pain was making him to become paralyzed. Have you ever had something, a sensation that passes through your body until you feel like you're getting paralyzed? You're tempted to scream out. That is what Mbane is undergoing. There's even a point that the brother is asking him, do you believe in Jesus? Mbane does not reply, and the brother later on is accusing him. You're not even replying. Instead, you are sobbing. The brother is asking him, there's a place I was trying to find. The brother telling him, you did not answer me, you began to sob. That one can be found on page 20. This one I'm reading can be found on page 20. You're still speaking about the pain. And about the pain, we want to touch on the points that will strengthen, want to touch on the illustrations that will strengthen the point that you're giving. They undergo physical pain. So on page 20, what does the brother say? The brother says, Mbane, I asked you, do you believe in God? It was Ezekiel again. And I said, I don't know. He answered weakly. No, you did not. In other words, the brother is telling him, you did not answer me. You only lay there sobbing. Now, a question to my class. Why is Mbane sobbing? The guy is weak. As the brother is trying to force him to accept, the brother believes on your deathbed, the only way you will access the kingdom of God, heaven, is by accepting Christ at your deathbed. So the brother is trying to like baptize him in a way. Do you believe in God? Mbane, and then he's accusing Mbane. You did not reply. You only lay there sobbing. But as Mbane is replying, he is replying weakly. And even the sobbing is as a result of pain. So point number one is being able to prove that the physically challenged, they suffer from pain. Allow me to share the first points. You know, when time will no longer be on my side, I'll continue explaining and then I'll give you a write-up later from which you can read. So we are looking at point number one. Point number one, how do they suffer? They suffer physical pain. Do we have evidences to speak to the fact that they suffer physical pain? It is on your screen as point number one. A lot of pain. The pain centers on his spine, in his stomach. There are sharp pangs emanating from the navel. They're making him almost paralyzed. As he's speaking to the brother, he speaks weakly. He's unable to answer. He resorts to sobbing. He's sobbing out of pain. And then he talked about a clincher. The clincher will always become my last sentence in a paragraph. At the end of it, I'm clinching that they suffer pain. And then how will I put it? I'll say the pain that Mbane is never getting accustomed to is an indicator of the challenges disabled people face. The pain, and then you read this book. It is this story. It has very few pages. Read and reread until you can give evidences of physical pain. Let's go to another one. Point number 2, I want to base it on the living conditions that Mbane is living under. And this one, I'll compare 2 different environments, but they are both unfavorable. They are both deplorable. We are looking at Mbane living in the streets. I don't want to invent my own story. I want to argue basing it on Leonard Kibira's A Silent Song. And from Leonard Kibira's A Silent Song, let's consider his first living quarters. This guy used to live in the streets. There's even a point the brother tells you, I saved you from the hard pavement. A student who is following closely is able to tell me that Mbane used to live on the pavement in the streets. What else before we get away from the streets, and then we compare with his second living quarters. On the streets, the pavement, and then when the streets were less crowded, when people have gone to sleep, Mbane would move to the back lane. Most of us have ever been to a town, any town. In towns, the dangerous places, they're usually the back lanes where not a lot of people pass. Still, where Mbane was living, we are being told sometimes it became a quarter for robbers, for thieves. The back lane, we are looking at his living conditions that are not favorable. Pavement, back of the street, where sometimes it became a quarter for the thieves, where they go hiding when they're sharing their illegally acquired money. Another thing I'm still not done with, Mbane living in the street, and it was deplorable. What does he say? He was unsheltered but unbothered. Not my words, words in the book. In the back lane of the street, he was unsheltered but unbothered. Even this one can still be an evidence when I say Mbane is lonely. He is unbothered. That one, the same illustration, I can use it later when I'm talking about challenges they face, among them loneliness. So, unsheltered, if I could center on the word unsheltered speaks to the fact that if it were a rainy day, Mbane will be rained on. The back street does not have something like a roof over his head. At the end of it, I'm sure we have agreed, another challenge suffered apart from physical pain, the disabled, they experience poor living conditions. Now I'm ready to share my screen on the same poor living conditions. You can put it whichever way. Living in deplorable conditions. Look at my second point. It says Mbane lives on the street in deplorable conditions, where he retires to the back lane of the street. This is late at night when traffic of people reduces. What does that tell you? That tells you this guy does not even have the freedom that you and I have. When you're done with your work, you can walk into your house. But this guy has to wait for the traffic to lessen. When the people are no longer many, he can now move to the back lane of the street. We continue. Even after his brother rescues him from the street, we've not yet gone to the part of the heart, but let me read and then I can go back and explain so that I don't have to be stopping. Even after his brother rescues him from the streets, his heart is not a reprieve. A reprieve is like, what word can I replace it with? Something that, a relief. The word is relief. It does not give him any relief. It is equally poor living conditions. How is the heart described? It is described as dirty and flea-ridden. The nights he identifies from the cold that he experiences when the sun withdraws. In the street, this guy cannot see. So how does he know it is night? The biting cold will tell him, it is now night time. And you remember he is unsheltered. From his brother's description, he had lived on the hard pavement, which is not at any time a conducive environment. At the back lane of the street, he was unsheltered but undisturbed. Lack of comfortable living quarters is just one among the problems experienced by the disabled as portrayed through Mbane. I'm sure my students have been able to see the aspect of poor living conditions. You talk about the biting cold, that is what tells him it is nighttime. You talk about he is unsheltered. You talk about the pavement was hard. You talk about the lack of freedom. He cannot walk in and sleep anytime he wants. He has to wait for the traffic of people to lessen so that he can go ahead and sleep. On the same point, now I'm building up on it. When the brother, as much as he says he rescued him, Mbane is not in any better place. The hut he has been given is dusty, it is dirty, and it has fleas. So we see the disabled, he has been, are they living in the same hut? The answer is no. They have put him away in a place that is not conducive. So point number 2 should have been understood up to that point. Let's go to another problem experienced by the disabled. Another problem the disabled experience, and the disabled, we are always looking at Mbane. They experience hopelessness. They look at their lives and they're wondering, how much can I amount to? Could I give evidences on the same? There is a time that Mbane thinks back about his religious mother. The religious mother currently is dead. But in his memory, he remembers his mother talking about people who are crying while others are laughing in triumph. It goes back to our religious teaching. The ones who will be going to heaven will have won against temptations, they'll be rejoicing now. The ones who will go to hell, they'll be crying, paying for their sins. But then Mbane looks at himself and he says, some people will be laughing, others will be crying. But when I look at my life, it is centered entirely on crying for all the hardships that he is undergoing. So that one speaks to the fact that the guy is not seeing any hope, any optimism. His life is shrouded in pessimism. He cannot see anything good about his life, still on the hopelessness. Another point to prove that the disabled are undergoing hopelessness. There's a time Mbane asks his brother, how old am I? The brother tells him, I think you're 14. And according to Mbane, he thinks, I think my brother had married at such an age. But then what becomes of me? I can't even marry. To me, marriage remains just but a dream. So according to that illustration, you can see the guy is hopeless. The brother at a certain time, he moved from his youthfulness. Now he became a family man by having a wife. But Mbane feels such a fate I cannot experience because I'm disabled. I can't even experience I cannot even experience marriage and get into a family. Still on Mbane, I don't know how much you're listening, but whenever we are having a point, we try to strengthen, and this one is a short story, remember? So we try to make our point beyond a reasonable doubt right. Another illustration that can speak to the fact that Mbane is hopeless, we can think about the way people around him are judging. They say it will be a good day. Look at the weather, but according to him, he cannot even have the same ability to speak about. If I could take it from page 18, at a certain point in page 18, if I give you the page, you can just note it, and then later on you go ahead and read. They're saying it is true that he could not tell how long, how wide, how beautiful, how big it was. These were things which would not matter. He had become used to the talk of bright weather. Now you see, people are telling, hey, the weather today is bright. It is a lovely morning. It is a beautiful sunset. Small talk, which he could never share. The point has been captured on page 18. He could never share. What does that speak to? It speaks to the fact that he is hopeless. People are seeing good things, a beautiful sunset, beautiful weather, a beautiful morning. But these feelings he would never share because of his blindness. He can only perceive, he can only feel it, but he can never see them. That one, and the fact that he acknowledges, I will never, speaks to the fact that the disabled are suffering from hopelessness. Let me share my screen. With point number 3, I only have 2 more points. Therefore, it means we are okay. We are within our time stipulated for our lesson. Point number 3 starts with furthermore. Point number 3 starts with furthermore. Man suffers from hopelessness. And even someone did not, people are supposed to ask me, Cha, what is the relevance of the title, A Silent Song? The silent song was Mbane's wish for death. He doesn't tell people loudly, I wish to die today. But did you notice when he was dying? When the brother says he is gone, he was smiling. Silently, because of all this suffering, Mbane wishes that he could die. But let me now get back to point number 3. It had, in a way, reminded me to mention it. He thinks of death as a welcome relief, where his soul will be free from the pain of his body. He tackled the world around him negatively, further emphasizing the hopelessness situation that he was in. When he views the world, what does he see? He sees the negativity. He reasons that his brother had married at an age similar to his, but to him, it remains just but a dream. He questions why he should believe in God. That is someone who is becoming hopeless. God, how can I believe in you? I'm suffering so much. You know, religion is supposed to hold out some hope for us. But when someone is no longer even believing in religion, that is a point towards, from Brian Kebera's writing, towards supporting our point on Mbane being hopeless. It continues, with reference to the religious teachings from his late mother, that some people cried while others laughed in triumph. His was centered entirely on crying for all the hardships he underwent. Still on the same, about hopelessness, we said, Mbane still cannot, he acknowledges, he accepts, he will never be able to see the beautiful mornings, the warm weather, and all that the book might have mentioned. That was a sign of hopelessness. Moving on to our point number 4. If you would agree with me, the story is brief. Therefore, some details you cannot force them if they are not there. Moving on to point number 4, what are we looking at? We are looking at Mbane. I always remind students of the question. We are looking at Mbane and the ways that Mbane suffers. So for our point number 4, we look at Mbane becoming overdependent. Mbane has no choice but to become overdependent. If I could just preempt. Number 1, Mbane is begging for money. Is having is it a bowl, is it a hat that he has placed over there? People you're familiar with, people who are begging in the streets, they'll place something in front of them, something in which you can drop the money that you might be merciful enough to help them. So for this person to beg, and you see sometimes even someone gives them, did they describe it as copper? That was speaking to the fact that people are not even giving notes. And in your understanding and my understanding, a note is worth more than the coins. Even the coins we have in Kenya. I think the highest is the 40 shilling coin. So people are simply giving pocket change. Someone might even throw over there a 1 shilling, and it is a story from Kenya, therefore maybe you can relate with it even more. So he is now becoming over-dependent on people who are giving him some money. We can remember the point on the good men and women, the ones that after the day has ended, they go into entertainment joints whereby they speak about examples such as pimps. The pimp is the one who is selling the prostitutes and their customers. And these people, they'll be overindulging in drunkenness. Later on, they'll be fighting with each other. Breaking bottles was an indication of violence. And these people, as they are living, these people were parting with a bit of money. That is why he's calling them the good people. As much as they're engaging in vices, they are drunk. They're engaging in things such as prostitution. When they're talking about the pimp, a pimp will sell a woman to a customer, if you don't understand the wordings. But still, these are the same people that at times they help him. But he has become over-dependent. The point on over-dependent, apart from begging, is there another evidence of begging? There's a point on Christmas Day that has been mentioned, and people are going into churches to celebrate Christmas. At that point, Mbane is wondering, have they forgotten about me? Why? He is over-dependent on these people so that he won't have to starve to hunger. He's dependent on the people. The money they give, he might be able to procure maybe bread, some food. So he's dependent on them. If it is up to myself, I'll die out of hunger. But because of them, and some of them are merciful enough, they pity me and throw in some money in my heart, I'll not die of hunger. But the fact that he has to depend on them, it speaks to the fact that the disabled are suffering challenges such as overdependence on other people. Some of them are also not generous enough. And to justify the fact that they are not generous, what do? They look at him and then they say, you are able-bodied. You are able-bodied. You can depend on yourself. But then the problem becomes you are accustomed to begging. Imagine passers-by looking at someone who is blind as well as physically challenged. But to justify their hardened hearts, they're not giving this person any money. What do they say? Aye, this guy is able-bodied. He is only disabled from the fact that he is dependent on begging. It's as if Mbane loves to beg. That is the take of some of these people. Still on overdependence, that sometimes maybe it also is a disadvantage to Mbane. I'm not done with that point. I'll add to another situation that can fit over here. We look at Mbane at a certain point, he is very hungry. We've now gone to the incident where he lives with his brother. Mbane is very hungry, and there's a time he's trying to move, but then he has like fallen off the bed. He is now crawling on his stomach. For this guy to get back on the bed, what do you think must happen? He has to depend on someone else to come and lift him and put him back on the bed. The fact that he is crawling on his stomach makes him dependent on other people to help him. And also back to the story to the point on hunger. This guy cannot go and cook his own food. And the well-wishers that at certain times used to give him the money, he's no longer in town in those streets. And at certain times, Mbane thinks those people were kinder. These people were kind. And he remembers them with nostalgia. He misses them because he could have depended on them to eat. But now look, he has to wait for the wife of the brother, Sarah. When she feels it is time, that is when she'll bring food. And you even see, Mbane is hungry, but is he given food? Instead of bringing food, the sister simply brings some kind of hope, speaks hope to him, and gives him some bitter medicine, telling him that very soon he will be fine. So we see that Mbane cannot do a lot of things for himself. And he is now reduced to being dependent on other people so that he can go about his ways of surviving. Allow me to share point number 4. I'm sharing point number 4. The one that says Mbane suffers from overdependence, where he has to depend on others to quench his hunger. To quench his hunger, I've already given you 2 parameters. The wife does not come with food, despite Mbane being very hungry. And at another time, when the people have gone to church, he thinks, have they forgotten me today? And the good men, after they're drunk, at least they drop some coins in his heart, ensuring that he eats. We're on the point about Mbane suffers from overdependence, second last point. He even notes it is these people's generosity, even though they're not giving much, it is the one that keeps him from starving to death. It means I'm dependent on your well-wishing, your good wishes. Your good wishes will ensure that I do not starve to death. While at it, some even justify their lack of generosity by saying that Mbane was able-bodied but has become disabled due to his dependence on begging. What does that tell you? Mbane is dependent on other people. Some people note this guy, he has become accustomed. He is ever begging. And they're thinking he is begging for leisure. It is because he loves it. That is why he's begging. Even while at Ezekiel's house, he is faced with hunger as the wife Sarah merely offers him the bitter medicine, yet he was feeling hungry. So he has to depend on her reasoning. Let him take the medicine first, maybe food later. We're not even assured, is this food going to come? But because he's dependent on other people, he has to contend with the situation. You can see someone has tried to scribble in the writing. I don't know whether it is by a mistake, but still you can raise a question on the chat section. It might have been by mistake, or it might have been maybe calling my attention to a certain area. You can always chat, raise your concern. Moving on to the last point that serves to answer our question. How else does Mbane suffer? Mbane, a representation of the disabled people. Mbane suffers loneliness. How is he lonely? Number 1, there's an example I had given some time back. I said he returns to the back of the street. He returns to the back of the street where he's unsheltered but unbothered. The word unbothered over here speaks to the fact that he is lonely. Unbothered, in other words, no one gives any attention to him. He's unbothered at the back of the street. He's alone. Alone speaks to the fact that he's lonely. That is 1. Number 2, there's a time that Mbane, in his thoughts, he says he had become accustomed to not speaking. You are always speaking to your thoughts. He has no one to speak to. That one became loneliness. Number 3, still on the same point, he has been confined into a lonely room. The brother and his wife do not stay with him. He has been kept aside to be on his own. That one still, I've given 3 evidences towards his loneliness. I want to go to the 4th one, and then after that I can share my screen that speaks to this point, speaks to building this point. Number 1, you have said, unbothered in the back lane of the street, meaning he's alone. Number 2, the guy had become accustomed to being not the one to start conversations. He was reduced to a mere listener. You listen, but don't speak. Number 3, the brother and the wife, they have kept him away in his own heart where he experiences loneliness. They only visit from time to time, maybe giving him. One wants to come and baptize him. The other one wants to, the other one feels herself to be a good person when she is catering for him in terms of bringing him medication. Still on his loneliness, there's a time he was wondering, have these people forgotten about me? They went to church, and because he is lonely, when these people who sometimes occasionally help him by dropping their coins, the day that he did not see them, and then him wondering whether they have forgotten him, speaks to the fact that Mbane is lonely. He would have loved some kind of human connection. Let me share my last point. My last point, it has clearly been brought out as lastly. It looks like it has covered one page, but imagine the one page has gone to over 600 words. That should encourage you. It is about capturing the point. If the points have not been provided in depth, you cannot go ahead and guess your own illustrations to explain. So we are on point number, the last one you're saying. Lastly, the disabled suffer from loneliness. During the Christmas morning procession, Bane feels that the good men and women had forgotten him. He wonders further whether they even remember or even notice him. This is a guy who's lonely. In his mind, he's thinking, do you ever think about me? Even see me at that corner that I'm sitting at? This is a lonely guy. Why should you be thinking about strangers and their feelings towards you? This speaks to the fact that Mbane is lonely. We continue. Having been long on the streets, he was used to not being the one starting conversations. Many times, he had spoken to himself in his thoughts. Someone who speaks to himself, even today, even you today, if you begin speaking to yourself, people will know it is out of loneliness. You're longing for that human connection, but lacking of that human connection, you'll have to contend with yourself to even speaking to yourself in your thoughts. You continue. He had no one to address. Let me turn the page. He had no one to address but himself. And then another point I've not maybe included in the write-up, but anytime I realize I've not included something, I'll still go back and edit a bit before I can send it to the group. So on the same point I had said, even though it has not been captured in writing, that the brother and his wife had kept him aside where he was in that lonely hut by himself, and they were checking up on him occasionally. The disabled suffer loneliness when they always have to keep to themselves, because even with family, Mbane seems estranged from his own brother. Up to that, I feel like any other point you might have will always come back to the same illustrations that I have. We might be having different points or maybe different wordings in explanation, but then the illustrations will still be falling back to the illustrations from the book, and at that point, we'll find ourselves agreeing. So far, before I can conclude, any addition? Any addition in the chat section? Any question? Any addition, any question? Because the conclusion can always be done without even explanations. The conclusion can always be done. Any area of concern? Any question to me? As you're thinking up a question for me, let me just share the last bit of it, the conclusion. I think I have a bias towards giving a piece of advice That is the kind of conclusion I find myself using a lot of times. In conclusion, the society should be kind enough to accommodate people with disability, to alleviate their problems such as hunger, lack of shelter, loneliness, and even lack of hope, as they are a part of our society. This one seems I have done a combination of the two. My conclusion over there, I've done a combination of the two. I've given a piece of advice at the beginning that society should be kind to accommodate people with disability. To alleviate is to lessen, to make better. They're having challenges, now we need to lessen their challenges by being kind. And while at it, I also mentioned maybe some of the problems they have experienced. This one of hunger, I want to change it to overdependence. It was falling under the general point of overdependence on people. They were overdependent to secure their food. So that is, I'll change the wording, but we are to reduce problems such as overdependence, lack of shelter, loneliness, and even lack of hope. And we are being reminded they are a part of our society. I stop sharing the screen. I now want any input from you. Even maybe our few remaining minutes, you can still tell me what are we doing next? Are we going back to the Samaritan? Are we picking another different story? If you don't have a question, I still want to see you chat with me, even giving me way forward on what is expected of our Monday lesson. 2 minutes to react. The guidance, what are we doing? What are we doing next week? Because it seems that today we do not have questions. Okay, good. Someone over here has reacted. Thank you. The person says, I don't know why I'm not able to access the chat.
I'm asking,
Mhm.
since you can't read the chat, I was asking, is it possible we look at Mayor Mosi and Nicole as standalone characters in terms of essay writing? Because you said at
Okay.
some point they've started
Mhm.
testing single characters. Is that possible?
Thank you
That's what
so
I was
much.
typing.
Thank you so much for that. It has been, is it a series of how many years? Is it 4 years back to back that I've tested a single character? So someone is suggesting to me, I either pick on Nicole, I pick on Mayor Mosi, where a whole essay centers on them. I'll do that. I'll do that as one of my essays come Monday. And I wish to concentrate on Nicole. And in fact, I can do both of them. One question on Nicole, another one on Mayor Mosi. And then later on, maybe on Tuesday, you'll guide me. So my suggestion is this. Could you put aside the short story? Monday, we go back to the Samaritan. Maybe on Tuesday, we can pick up on the short stories from where we've left. Any other concern? I don't know what technological error I'm experiencing on my end.
Madam,
I can barely read the chats. Go ahead.
Madam Rispa,
Yes.
on,
Yes,
Tu-
yes.
on Tuesday, on Tuesday is our free lessons class.
Mm-hmm.
And I would suggest that on Tuesday we do something on Samaritan so that we're able to accommodate the others. So
Mm-hmm.
that when we have others probably are doing parliament or whatever, they don't find it a challenge when we are concentrating on the silent song. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking because I think because we've done like how many stories now on silent song?
I think we've done 4. We've done Sins of the Fathers.
Yes.
We've done 4. We've done 4.
You've done. I think on Monday we can do those two on Miamosi and on you said Miamosi and Nicole?
Yes, I'll find a question on Nicole, another question on
Yeah.
Miamosi.
Yeah, because remember this is part of revision, eh? We are not just
Mhm.
doing this to answer the questions, but we're also doing this to revise, eh? Just to
Mhm.
remind ourselves of the content and all that. So that's why I'm liking this, because as we do this, we're also reminding ourselves of the things that we are doing. From on Tuesday we'll have the
Mhm.
free session where we bring in everybody on board, whether they have paid or not, as much as some of us who are here have not paid and have not followed up on you, because I'm expecting you to just pay without me having to follow up on you. I'm waiting for
Mhm.
you to send the 300. Yeah, so on Tuesday we'll have the free lessons. Then on Wednesday is when we begin our week 2. But remember, we said from next week we'll have different timings. Did we say 3 p.m.? What time did we say? It's like that slipped out of my mind.
We were suggesting 3 or 4. They're the ones
Yeah,
to decide.
I'm thinking 3 is it's better than 4. 4 takes us to 6.
By the way.
And that could be a bit late because we have the other class at 7:30. So I would rather
Mhm.
we do 3 to 5 so that we have some time in between for those who
Mhm.
are attending the evening class. Yeah, so I would suggest from Monday, therefore, the Monday lesson is at 3. I will edit the poster and all that. But on Tuesday, we'll have a free lesson. On Tuesday, we'll have a free lesson. Then from Wednesday, for those who want to carry on with the paid one, from Wednesday now we begin the 3 and they pay the 300. I hope that is clear. Eh? So for those of us who've been here since last week, not last week, since Wednesday up to Monday, please remember to send your 300. Then another 300 begins on Wednesday. To be honest, I have intentions of carrying on with this all the way until the other week. Because for me, I think this is an area that needs to be covered. I think it's an area that students are struggling. And even if we have a class of 3 students, the class will still go on. Even if we are 3 of us, trust me, the class will go on. So pale utasikia sasa umechoka kiasi or you've had enough, feel free to exit. We have no problem, but the class will carry on all the way up to the end. I hope so. I pray that that would be practical. So I think maybe my suggestion would be on Tuesday, let's do Samaritan, a question that can accommodate everybody, and then on Wednesday probably we can take it up. And I was hoping that maybe the people on Samaritan, I'm wondering, all of us are doing silent song. We'll at some point do have a day for parliament, maybe
Mhm.
just for the sake of those who are doing parliament. But maybe we can look into that next week. We can plan for next week and see who will be on board. Maybe our parliament hatakuwa. So I think it's okay. So we meet on Monday at 3. You can get us the
Mhm.
question.
Mhm.
We can get us a question on Miamosi and Nicole. Then on
That is
Tuesday, we
Monday.
still on Monday, yes, at 3 p.m. Then
On
on
Tuesday.
Tuesday, Tuesday, you get us a Samaritan because it's a free
Mhm.
session and we have more people. So
Mhm.
let's not do an optional book. Then on Wednesday, then we can do the silent song, and then we see
Mhm.
whether we'll have people parliament. Then in the course of the week, we can decide to do one day to do a parliament. I'm thinking that could be okay, and maybe even that time we could also do one day for imaginative composition into
Mhm.
the other week. But not now.
Okay,
Maybe the other week we can plan for imaginative composition.
we shall.
Yeah. I don't know whether the students have something to add to that or an opinion or something.
And I'm having a technical hitch. I cannot read the
Yeah.
messages. So if you can
Yes.
read from
I
your
ac-
end.
I actually had to do something for me. I think it was the setting of it. Somebody was asking, so Monday, what are we doing? I hope that question is answered. Teacher, is the fee paid weekly? The 500? No, it's not 500, Gloria. It is 300. We brought it down to 300 to make it affordable for everybody. So, and the week begins on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday. That is 5 days, 300. So Tuesday is a free one for everybody. But this week I shared the link openly. so that even those who have not paid, people can just walk in and learn, hoping they will not run away with a 60 bob. Yeah, I would feel very sad if anybody refused to pay the 300, because 300 means it's 60 bob per day. So ukikataa kulipa, let me use the word kukataa, I think sasa I can't argue with you. Sasa hiyo discussion siwezi kuwa na wewe. I will let you go because sasa hiyo discussion takuwa chini sana. And I can't do that with you. So somebody is asking, teacher, is it okay we finish with the short stories since we are managing 2 in a day? Domi, yeah, it's okay. But trust me, if you stay along for the remaining days, imagine we will finish. Me, I want to see us finishing, by the way. I have every intention of having this throughout. And I know Madam will take us through all the stories. I mean, I am looking forward to that. So don't worry. Let's also mix up with Samaritan because Samaritan is important. But trust me, if she's doing 2 per day, by the time, if we don't break, I am sure we'll be able to finish. So we're pangia to your 300, that is 600. It's manageable. I think it's fair. For me, I think being charged 300 for 60 bob for 2 hours of this kind of content, I think it's not even a charge. So stay around, you will get all the stories done. But wacha tufanye pia Samaritan, it's important. Then the other one, is it possible to look at Nicole and Mossy? I think those ones you had seen as standalone characters, and that's the one you're responding to. When the sun poured its heat too generously upon him, and the flies crawled along the edges of his lips, I think someone was responding to a point.
Yeah,
Sawa sawa. Yes, Domi, I know you're like this. Domi, you're saying I'm here to stay. Yes, I know you are. Wewe nakujua sana. I know even if I don't have any other students, I know I will have Domi and I will have Monica. those are my diehards. So for the sake of those who want to stay around, don't worry. The classes will carry on. And trust me, by the time tunamaliza hii holiday, paper 3. Unajua hata nataka tufanye hivi because of the private candidates class. Najua sasa hatutakuwa na stress ya kufanya essays. So I know we will be fine. Tutakuwa tumecover. And then this was also recorded. So we can also be looking at it later, pole too. Yeah, so I think we are good. Rispa, what do you think, Rispa? Is there, maybe you can ask the students, is there a different way you don't want us to handle? Na mnanyamaza sana. Once
today
in
they
a
were
while.
so quiet.
Yes, ama ni venye ni Saturday. Maybe Monday mchangamke. Now you're not new people now. Now you know how to write essays. Monday, let's see some bit of activity. But I think it was good for a beginning. Mm-hmm. Yes, madam.
If I could speak in their defense, I didn't want to
Yeah.
tell them as I was beginning, that is the
Yes.
hardest story in the whole anthology. You know, if I could have said it at the beginning, they wouldn't have. Yeah. So I think that's even ask questions. So I want them to go and reread to understand it. That is the hardest story
I know.
of the 14.
And that's and the twist, it has the storyline is so funny. Sometimes even us in the department, we've been having conversations with my colleagues. Do you know, sometimes hata tunakuwa confused once in a while, tunaulizana, so who did what happened, until you really have to be very intentional about that story. I totally agree with you. And I want to hope that as we carry on, tutapata opportunity at doing this story again. We can do another question on the same. Yeah, I know the next few days tutarudia maswali zingine hapa. We'll be okay. Wengine wanasema wako harusi. Ni sawa. Wengine wako
Someone is asking,
rurashio,
what about fathers? Fathers will be coming in paper 2.
As excerpt, yes, as an excerpt. We may not handle excerpts here. If you want to handle excerpts, you join the normal classes. Hizi za asubuhi na jioni, huko ndiko tunafanya excerpts. Hapa sasa ni essay writing only. Maybe one of the lessons mwalimu can take us through, tukipitia, we can do one excerpt. Maybe tukimalizia huko mwisho, the last week we can do some. But for now we concentrate on paper 3. But tunaweza pitia kidogo. She will help us as we finish up. The last week we can have some space to do a few more things. She's balanced, she's polished in all the areas. So I'm sure she can help us on other areas. Sawa. I think unless there's somebody else with something to say, we can say have a lovely weekend and see you on Monday at 3. And please invite your friends. Wambie ni 300 tu. Tuesday wakuje wote. Hatutawalipisha. Sawa. All right. Have a good weekend and say hi to your families, and thank you for being part of this program.